This is a prototype. Want to see the original? Smash that like. 3, 2, 1. Here it is. Pretty cool, right? Today we're checking out Poppy Playtime Chapter 5 concept art. Watch until the end. Subscribe so we can meet again. Thanks. Here's the original concept video of how Huggy was supposed to jump scare us or start chasing us at the very beginning. Funny enough, it's still in the game files, which is actually quite interesting. What's in that video that's So, as you can see, this is some kind of rendering test for the first cutscene. You can see that Huggy is fully modeled, but there's no lighting yet. And then, if we look at the rest of the objects there, you can see they don't really have much in the way of textures. Yeah, take a look. It's basically without textures, without any, like, shadows. The only thing is that the environment is, like, modeled to look how it's supposed to, but it's completely unfinished. So this is actually a file that's still in the game, and I honestly have no idea why it's still there. Now we have one more video. The rest will probably just be pictures. And this video is extremely interesting because it's the original version of what the prototype's jump scare was supposed to look like. And honestly, I think that this version is way better than the one we got. So I hope they use this version of the jump scare in Chapter 6. So, this is what a jump scare looks like in a game where, the prototype doesn't even really grab you. He probably doesn't even actually grab you with his hand. Actually, if we slow it down, the prototype, you're sort of underneath him and he just, yeah, right, he grabs you and pulls you up to his mouth. Yeah, if we look at it, you're standing under him and then he pulls you in with one hand. Yes, right there. It pulls you up to its mouth. It's a pretty cool jump scare, but honestly, even after it stabs us at the end, I like that other jump scare way more, because when we look at it in slow-mo, we can see that the prototype actually grabs us right at the start, takes its other hand, and does that classic move of his, stabbing right through us, which looks absolutely crazy, and is a much better animation in my opinion. I get why they skipped it, my son. Like, there was already a stabbing animation at the end until they avoided a jump scare, but but it could work in Chapter 6. And that'd be cool. A nice change, having the same villain use a different jump scare, like just like they did with Huggy, for example, where he had a different jump scare in Chapter 1 than he has now in Chapter 5. And well, we actually have the version here of what the prototype was originally supposed to look like. Isaac, who served as the original lead writer for the first 3 chapters of Poppy Playtime before his departure from Mob Entertainment, recently took to Twitter to answer a series of fan questions following the release of Chapter 5. Many curious fans were eager to know whether the developers actually utilized his original narrative concepts, or if they decided to completely overhaul his ideas and change things up. First off, Isaac said that Chapter 5 was actually supposed to be the final chapter in his script and that they changed it, which is pretty interesting. And Isaac also mentioned that the prototype was originally supposed to look a bit more like the shrine Catnap had, where he was actually worshipping the prototype. If you take a look at Chapter 3, we have this shrine right here, this totem that Catnap actually constructed for the prototype so that he could go there and pray in that way. Yes, we have it featured as a major scene in Chapter 3. It is truly one of the most extreme scenes, I have to say. Actually, the way PJ Pugapillar's neck is elongated up there, it looks pretty similar to how the original model was supposed to look. And then, if we look, we have these much bigger, blockier mechanical hands. That's actually how the prototype was originally supposed to look, you know. The original model was meant to be a hodgepodge of different things. It probably even had more arms. Isaac said this fan-made model is the closest to the original design. You can see it was only supposed to have one robotic arm, the one we know. And the other hand was supposed to look completely different. It was meant to be totally different, and he was actually supposed to have this long, elongated, creepy neck, which would have actually fit that Catnap shrine better. But as you can see, he was meant to be a jester from the start, which is wild. And here we can see that he has his real eye in his mouth, yeah, and the skull. So I extended it as he actually has a jester outfit here. Whilst like on the model we received, he has a jester mask right on it. Also, the prototype version we currently have in the game wasn't originally supposed to have both hands with those claws, those long ones of his, like he does like this. But one of those hands was supposed to be a syringe that he was using to inject the Poppy gel into the toys, but honestly, I think it's better that he has actual mechanical hands and can pick up things like scalpels or syringes with them. It would seem weird to me if one of his entire hands was just a syringe. That's pretty strange. We've even got some behind-the-scenes footage from the shoot showing how both the Miss Gracie scenes and the opening scenes with the prototype were filmed, where he was adjusting those wrong-side outimals. As you can see, the plushie is actually made right here. It looks really ugly. It's honestly hideous. And if we take a look, we've even got the other plushie shown here, how it was supposed to look. And we even have the hand here, well, the prototype that was used in that cutscene. So it was all practical effects. It wasn't just a concept. It was distinct show. Why? It was built for real. Like, and they used to they even made a functional prototype claw for the cutscenes. A truly fascinating detail. Like, and they actually made the whole thing for real, which is cool. Yeah, you can still see really clearly how the hands look. That we've got another extremely interesting thing here, and this is how the room with Braun was originally supposed to look. As you can see, yes, they're still eating his insides. That hasn't changed, but the room, as you can see, was a lot more, like, compact. Yeah, it was more like, you know, a boiler room. And honestly, I think I like this room from the concept art a tiny bit more. It feels a bit more detailed. It's not unnecessarily huge like it was in the game. And it's not, you know, so empty. Yeah, it's a pretty nice concept art. As we can see, we even have a Huggy plushie hanging here as a wrong side. Yeah, it's like it's turned inside out with the plush side out. If you look up at the top, you can see these toy souls, or perhaps they are those, like, missing orphans. And we have sketches of those souls, and then it seems the orphans were intended to be featured right here. Just look at that. The orphans are actually tearing into and eating Braun's internal organs. So, it is actually intended as a form of foreshadowing for the fact that those small toys are meant to represent the orphans. The children are actually trapped inside of them, aren't they? And then we have a second version, which is even crazier than that, and Braun is completely strapped in tight right here. Zaborti... Look, he's completely tied up here around his neck, tied up all over his rear, and he's even tied so tightly here that it's eating through his tail. It's all bloody, and his insides are being eaten away here, so this Braun was kept here. He was sort of eating some food that the prototype was likely giving him, and once he processed and digested it, the orphans ate it out of his intestines. So the prototype was keeping it stored right here. He would chew up the big toys for the smaller ones, and then they ate the mush from his gut. Honestly, I like this room even better than the last one. You really should judge for yourselves, and... This is how it was actually supposed to look, and this is the second concept. This one is honestly even crazier to me. Yeah, this one is still pretty chill, but here he's actually completely trapped and, like, genuinely being tortured. Gross. Next concept art for the room where the prototype did his experiments, turning those toys. That last grab pack puzzle is there with both Giblet and Chum Chumkins. Why wasn't Chum Chumkins with us? Why leave him unfinished? It makes no sense for Tiny Giblet to pull us from that vat. I think Chum Chumkins just carried us, and for some reason he's not there. The cool thing is that, at one point in development, it was actually planned for Giblet and Chum Chumkins to be with us in this section too. And they'd be down there waiting for us, and we'd go with them, because it's actually pretty weird as it is. I've heard people complaining about this, and I honestly agree, where Giblet tells you to meet at the train, but you end up going somewhere completely random. On top of that, you run into Huggy, and end up arriving there later than they do, instead of just calmly walking along with them and arriving at the destination together. Yeah, that really makes absolutely no sense at all. I would like to find another way. I mean, you really arrive later, and Huggy is chasing you on top of that. Yeah, so I think it would have made way more sense if we were in this room with Giblet and Chum Chumkins and reached the train with them, but then that encounter with Huggy probably wouldn't have happened, so they probably needed to work it into the story a bit differently, so that idea probably ended up getting scrapped. Here we have the concept art for the train itself, which is supposed to go into or out of the reanimation. So this is actually the train from our boss fight. Here's another design. The prototype was supposed to have, as I mentioned, one of its arms as a needle. The original concept was that it would function like a mechanical jaw, and whenever that jaw opens up, the needle would pop right out of the palm, as you can see here. Yeah, so the intention was for it to act as a grabbing device, like a hand, but whenever it performed this specific motion, it was meant to transform into a sharp needle. That's a pretty interesting concept, and honestly, if he had a second hand like that, I wouldn't even mind, but his signature hands that we've known since the first chapter, those long claws, I think I still like those the best. Here we have another piece of concept art for the machine that's up in the reanimation room, where the prototype was working on those toys, and as you can see, there are a lot of different parts there that he was likely powering and operating on as well. And if we take a look, it was actually used for this model here. So the claw that the prototype was supposed to have ended up being used, and it turned into these hands here, some robotic arms that then operated the toys. So in the end, they actually used this concept, and here we have a bunch of concepts of what Lily Lovebraid's bed was supposed to look like. We even have one here that looks like a makeup box, just lying on its side like that. That's really strange. Then we have this part here, which actually made it into the game. For me, that's probably the nicest one of all. And then we have another one, a more disco-colored part, let's say, which even has a nightstand and a small bed. For me, that part or that concept that made it into the game is the absolute best, because it has that big, beautiful bed that's actually heart-shaped, and design-wise, I think it looks the best. So these are the other concepts that were here, but what made it into the game is, in my opinion, the best one. Just quickly, here are some sketches. So this is the boss fight with Huggy. I know the only thing we see is that there was supposed to be, a blocked-off section here, so there was meant to be a part where we couldn't really pass through, and he could have potentially cornered us there. And here you can see the projectors actually had an even more retro design. They weren't the ones we ended up with in the game. And here we have the final sketch. Basically, Miss Gracie in bed. The only thing that's actually different here is that the card is on this side instead of this side, and there's also a lemon. I don't even know if there was actually a lemon lying there with her. I know there were flowers and plushies lying there, but I don't know if there was a lemon plushie, so that's quite interesting. Here's a detailed sketch of his living quarters. I must admit, this looks much better than the final game version. He even has a slide leading into a huge pool here. If there was a part where you go outside to the pool and do some quest out there, that would be super cool. I'd really like that. Here we also have some sketches of the prototype hand, and as you can see, like that poppy gel is dripping through his veins, I guess, and it's even leaking out in some places. Yeah, so a pretty interesting, very detailed concept of his hand, and I have to say it looks maybe a bit scarier than it actually does in the game. It's more rusty, and some of those wires, you can see here he has some kind of bulging tumor-like thing, you could say, and here the poppy gel is even dripping out, and it's like his blood, in quotes, is leaking. Now, here is yet another version of the hand. The very same principle applies to this one as well. You can see it dripping right off of his hand, which means he is most likely in a state of constant agonizing pain. Honestly, I find that to be a really compelling and interesting detail. I am genuinely curious to see how the prototype evolves or changes when we finally reach Chapter 6. Are we going to burn his suit away? Will we finally remove his mask? Will we get to see what is truly hiding underneath? If she ends up getting hair from Lily Lovebraids like people are speculating, that'll be wild. Here's the prototype concept art from Chapter 1. This is how they had him sketched out from the very beginning, how they envisioned him looking. So we can see that from the first chapter, the plan was for him to just be a Jack-in-the-Box. So we know that one half is like a jester. Yeah, literally Jackie from Secret of the Mimic. They were clearly inspired by the design, but they managed to beat them to the punch. It's absolutely hilarious. He is essentially half Jackie, like some sort of twisted Jack-in-the-Box, and he actually went ahead and attached those mechanical spider legs all by himself. If you look at this sketch, it clearly shows that the base of the prototype was originally intended to be nothing more than a simple toy. I really have to wonder if there is any way for us to track down the original version of this thing. This one here, the one the one where you just crank the Jack-in-the-Box. It would be really cool to actually find the original version before the prototype turned it into its own body. And here we have some concept art of how Playcare was originally supposed to look. This is how Playcare was originally intended to look back in Chapter 3. It's really cool, and I wonder if it will ever make it into the final game. It looks so incredibly nice and vibrant. We have got these train tracks, a river, and another section over here. This was the very first original sketch of the Playcare facility. Pretty cool. And then we have the original version of what Chum Chumkins was supposed to look like. He wasn't supposed to have a mouth in his belly or a belly in his mouth. Yeah, I don't know how to put it, but he was actually supposed to have a little blue mouth just like Huggy has. Personally, I like this one better. There's even an inside-out version of him, with his insides turned out as if the prototype, well, also, as we know, he's involved with the prototype. So it's like the prototype actually took him and, you know, abused and tortured him too. He even has a bow tie just like Huggy, and I think he looks way better like this. Yeah, you can see he doesn't even have that belly design. He's got more of a little backpack on his back like this, and he just has this smiley mouth. As we know, Chum Chumkins actually doesn't have a mouth at all. He has his mouth in his belly. Yeah, he doesn't have some little smiley mouth. Honestly, I like this Chum Chumkins design way more than the one we got in the game. Personally, I don't really like Chum Chumkins that much. Yeah, he's cute, ugly cute, but the model feels a bit half-assed to me. I already said that when we first met him. If he had a little mouth like this and uneven eyes, honestly, I think he'd be a tiny bit cuter, so I like this concept better. And let me know in the comments which Chum Chumkin you prefer, the one we actually got or this concept here. And here we also have some concepts of Lily Love Braids on those various cutouts. And as we know, Lily Love Braids probably had a few different personalities. It's not just Gracie, but but Lily herself had different outfits. You know, we've got a clown outfit, a pool party outfit, a princess one, and pajamas. We have like a various outfits here Lily was meant to use in different parts. We know she was also supposed to have that pool outside. So, if she had shown us all these outfits and if the part with Lily Love Braids was meant to be longer, you know, that would have been cool. So if they scrapped that and there was supposed to be an outdoor scene with the pool and she was supposed to show us other outfits too, then I'm a bit bummed because this looks amazing. But at least it made it into the final cut. So, moving on to Lily Love Braids, here we have the original concept art that Isaac did before he left the studio during Chapter 3, and this is the design for Lily Love Braids back in 2023. So this is what Lily Love Braids looked like 3 years ago before she was fully developed. And a really cool model. Yeah, it's wild that this is actually the only character, besides the prototype, of course, that made it into this chapter. What else did the original screenwriter come up with? So, Lily Love Braids ended up being used from the original script, but obviously we know she looks completely different now, and honestly, I think it looks better. Originally, Sweet Street was supposed to be more claustrophobic, more, you know, enclosed. As you can see, it was the house in it was originally meant to be just this one house in a remote spot. Yeah, Lily went completely crazy, as we know, spending 300 or 400 days in total isolation. It's a pretty intense concept. It'd be about 10 minutes of gameplay. Yeah, so that doesn't really make sense. I get that they expanded the location later, but it's kind of weird, a strange feeling, kind of claustrophobic, and it really reminds me of the Playcare style again. So as an interesting concept of how Lily's house was originally supposed to look, a tiny little cottage. But I realized this is a bad idea because there would be almost no gameplay. Then here we have a second draft of what Sweet Street could have looked like. And here it looks like there's one main building belonging to Lily and 2 other side buildings where we would probably do those side quests, and then we'd get the tea party. So this is a design they came up with earlier, but it was probably still too small for the location. They needed to stretch gameplay and make her house bigger because honestly it's quite tiny. It's like it's just concept art, so it could be bigger inside, but as you see, it's just a set piece. Up here are the walkways where scientists checked on subjects, monitoring their isolation and how they were feeling. Clearly, this is just another fake sky, a backdrop with a portal vibe. Like, if you have played it, you know exactly what I mean. Here is the concept art for that dream room. It's made it into the game, bed and all. That was Huggy's room, our absolute nightmare. Wow, we're looking at a more vibrant and colorful version. And so, this is his room appearing exactly as it did when he first played that memory. So, like... We have even gone so far as to set aside a dedicated special room here for both Mommy Longlegs and the lovely Kissy Missy. Perhaps at some point in the distant past, we were actually intended to develop unique individual dreams for all 3 of these truly fascinating characters. However, we only ended up receiving 3 distinct stories for Huggy, which I personally quite enjoyed, as it provided him with some truly profound, complex, and deep lore. Honestly, I ended up liking that it was just about him, but at first I actually thought we'd get Huggy, Mommy Longlegs, and maybe Catnap. Catnap also has some insane lore, so they could realistically do some memories for him too, but we can see that the original plan was to do Huggy, Mommy Longlegs, and Kissy Missy, which is really cool. Then we have some different models here. We can take a look at what the sketched model of Broken Poppy looks like in that pose. Yes, as you can clearly see, we have the raw meat protruding here, specifically the muscles. The eye area is quite mangled, or rather, it doesn't have an eye at all. So moving on, here we have some concept art. Right here, we have the specific Lily Love Braids painting that in the end actually managed to make its way into the final version of the game. Moving right along, we have a collection of various boss fight concept art pieces along with a detailed storyboard sketch that depicts her dramatic death scene. And what I find particularly interesting about all of this is that the entire concept is completely original and entirely unique to this specific project. The only other thing is, like, when she's actually falling, when it tears, when she starts to fall, she says, no, wait, I was a good toy. I'll stop. I don't want to die. Oh, which is pretty interesting that they didn't actually put this part in the game, this voice line, for when she's falling. That would have been great, and feel like we'd feel guiltier for taking her down. It would have added real depth to her character. We know she's Gracie, we just killed our own colleague, right? It would have meant so much, especially since she'd say, bad toy, good toy, who's good, who's bad. She was out of it, totally brainwashed. So, I'm bummed that this voice line didn't make it into the final game, and I still don't understand why they scrapped it. And another interesting thing, the original concept was for Kissy Missy and Huggy Wuggy to make actual physical contact. Like, as you are aware, Kissy places her hand upon his face right here, gently strokes his cheek, and then he reaches out and grabs her. Oh. It's super sad that we just got the version where they don't hold hands, and the only time Kissy actually grabs him is at the end by the thigh, when they're both literally lying there dead, you know? Oh, we'll see if they're dead, right? We'll see what happens in Chapter 6. But dude, this is so cute. Why didn't it make it into the game that Kissy would actually touch him? It would have been bittersweet, not just bitter. They were meant to hold hands before the prototype had her stab him. The storyboard had them touch. Hit that like button.